Xin chào tất cả các bạn đang tham gia hội thảo IELTS trực tuyến mở khóa IELTS Writing 7.0. Buổi hội thảo do IELTS IDP Việt Nam tổ chức. IDP rất vui khi có sự góp mặt của chuyên gia IELTS. Thầy Mark Horne là người dẫn dắt chính trong buổi hội thảo ngày hôm nay. Thầy Mark là một giáo viên giảng dạy IELTS người Anh với kinh nghiệm hơn 13 năm sinh sống và giảng dạy tại Việt Nam. Thầy đang là thạc sĩ giảng dạy ngôn ngữ, là giảng viên của các trường đại học và trung tâm Anh ngữ tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và Đà Nẵng. Từ năm 2017, thầy tham gia vào đội ngũ giáo viên của trung tâm Anh ngữ ACET, giảng dạy các khóa học tiếng Anh học thuật và IELTS. Để đường truyền trực tuyến cho buổi hội thảo được tốt hơn, mong các bạn tắt microphone và video cá nhân trong suốt buổi hội thảo. Trong quá trình tham dự, khi muốn đặt câu hỏi, các bạn vui lòng gõ câu hỏi của mình vào khung Q&A. Còn nếu các bạn muốn trả lời các câu hỏi của thầy Mark đem ra, các bạn vui lòng gõ vào ô chat xuất hiện trên màn hình. Và bây giờ chúng ta sẽ cùng đến với buổi chia sẻ của thầy Mark Horne, hy vọng sẽ đem lại nhiều kiến thức bổ ích cho các bạn. Hi Mark, please begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. It's wonderful to see so many people here. Okay. There we go. I don't think we will worry about that, but you can have a quick think of this. Okay, so welcome for coming, and just have a look at these questions. Okay, what do you know about the IELTS writing exam? How is the IELTS writing exam marked? And how do you feel about the writing exam? Well, today we'll be thinking about these questions, okay, and in my presentation, okay, which is called Unlocking IELTS Writing 7.0, the key to achieving success in the IELTS exam. So today I'm going to be showing you what you need to do to get a 7 in the IELTS writing exam. Okay, I am Mark Horne, and I know I've just been introduced, but let me just say it again. Okay, I've been in Vietnam since 2008, and I've been teaching IELTS for around 13 years since I got here. And I'm here today to share my IELTS tips and advice with you. And I'm very happy to be here today. Okay, so in today's workshop, as I have just said, okay, we will be looking at what IELTS examiners look for when they award a band 7 in the writing exam. And to do that, we'll be looking at how the examiners mark the IELTS exam, and we'll be looking at the 4 things they give scores for. So I know we've just tested the chat box. So do you know the 4 things that they give scores for? In the chat box, if you have an idea, the 4 different scores you get in the IELTS exam, perhaps you can put your ideas in the chat box for me. Okay, I can see some coherence, grammar, lexical. Okay, we got task response and task achievement. That's interesting. Okay, vocab. Okay, we got Miss Ya with Hui, sorry, with lots of things there. Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, very good. So let's look at those 4 things. Okay, and the first thing we will be looking at is grammar. Okay, so grammar is the first thing. Okay, and in IELTS markers refer to it as grammatical range and accuracy. So there's actually 2 slightly different things in there. There is vocabulary. So well done if you had vocabulary. And in IELTS, we call that lexical resource. And there is organization, which in IELTS we call coherence and cohesion. Again, they are two slightly different things, and we will be looking at both of those. Okay, so well done if you had those things. And the final thing, okay, is content. Okay, which in IELTS we call task response, and there's actually task achievement too. Okay, again, two slightly different things, but very, very slightly different. So, as I said, in today's webinar, okay, we will be looking at how to get a 7 in each of those band descriptors. That's what we call them in IELTS. Okay, the little things that you need to do to get that band score. And at the end of the presentation, we will be having a quick look at what you can do during lockdown to improve your writing, because we all know at the moment all the schools are closed. Well, we can't go to school, but there are still things that we can do, okay, to work on our writing. So I'll give you a few ideas. And then finally, at the end of today's webinar, we will have time for some questions and answers. So can I please ask if you do have any questions during the webinar, perhaps you can jot them down on a piece of paper and please save them until the end. There's quite a lot of you here today. Okay, so I won't be able to answer questions during the presentation, but please at the end, ask me anything, okay, about the IELTS writing exam. So let's begin, and we will start with this top one here, grammar. Okay, oh, just before we start with that, this is what the IELTS examiners use, okay, something very similar to this, okay, we call these the IELTS writing band descriptors. So the IELTS examiners look at these when deciding what band score to award a student. And there are two versions for the two different tasks in the writing exam. Can you spot the difference? Perhaps in the chat box. I don't know if you have the ability to annotate on the slide or not. Okay, if you have the ability to annotate, you can perhaps circle, but if not, you can just have a look, perhaps send me a message in the chat box. They are slightly different. Okay, Fung and task response and task achievement. That's right. Okay. Oh, I don't have the ability to annotate either. Never mind. Okay, very good. Coherence and cohesion. There is a little bit of difference there. Okay. And there's a little bit of difference in those task achievement and task response columns. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't annotate on here. I can't circle to show you exactly where the differences are. Okay. They are slightly different, but to be honest, the difference is not that great. Okay, today we will be focusing on task 2. Okay, when we look at task response. Yeah, okay. And we know task 2, you get more marks are awarded for task 2. It's with 66% of your band score. Okay. So as I said, let's start with grammar. Okay. So today we're looking at how to get a band 7. So we'll compare band 6 and band 7. Okay. And see what we need to do to step up to that higher band score. So in band 6, you are allowed to make some errors in grammar. And these errors rarely reduce communication. That means the IELTS examiner or a reader is able to understand your idea most of the time. But to get a band 7, you have to have good control of grammar, and it does not mention communication here. Okay, you are allowed to make a few errors. Okay, you don't have to have perfect control of grammar. So, but you do have to be making error-free sentences. Okay, so you have to have the ability to produce sentences which contain no errors. Okay, so just to sum up, to be awarded a 7, you need to be able to produce error-free sentences, not make too many grammatical mistakes. Okay, and although it doesn't mention it in band 7, okay, you must be able to communicate your ideas successfully. So while in band 6, you are it says rarely reduce. Okay, so if the reader doesn't quite understand your idea sometimes because of your grammar mistakes, that's okay for band 6. But in band 7, you have to be able to communicate your ideas. Your grammar needs to be good enough not to confuse the reader. So it's always a good idea to read your writing task, okay? And if you are confused by your grammar, that means the examiner will be confused too. So we know we need good grammatical accuracy. So how can you improve your grammatical accuracy? I have some ideas for you. You can, of course, study grammar. Okay, to improve your grammatical accuracy, study grammar. Review the grammar you have learned. Of course, you can use textbooks for that. You can use the internet for that. Okay, go back to your high school. It's the one thing we all know high schools do well in Vietnam. Lots of focus on grammar. So go back to your high school stuff. That's fine. Okay. Analyze your writing. Analyze the grammatical structures in your writing. Look for mistakes. And a good way to analyze your writing is to read your writing out loud. When I read things that I have read, if I read things up here, sometimes I skip over the mistakes. My brain doesn't process it carefully enough. But if you read your writing out loud, actually that process of hearing, okay, the grammar, you will notice a lot more mistakes. So that's something I always tell my students when they're proofreading at the end of an exam, or when they're just before they hit that submit button or send button when they're sending me assignments. Read it out loud. You will definitely notice more mistakes. You can also use a grammar checklist. What I mean here is you have a list, yeah, and does every sentence have a verb? Okay, you check your sentence. Yes, there's a verb. Have I used the correct tenses? Check your tenses. Okay, give yourself a check. Have I used modal verbs when I need to? For example, if I need to hedge, okay, give yourself a check. So you can have a checklist of some of the basic grammar things that we need to have, okay? Especially important for those basic mistakes, because you can't really afford to make basic mistakes, okay, to get a band 7. This is one of my favorite things to do with my students. Draft an answer, okay? Write a task 2 or task 1 answer, perhaps in set yourself a time limit, okay? Set yourself the 40 minutes or 20 minutes. And then after you have written it, review it. Okay, use your grammar checklist, read it out loud, and then edit it and rewrite it. And this time you can take your time, okay, rewriting it, and of course analyze it carefully. As I mentioned, okay, use a grammar reference book. Okay, if you're attempting to use a conditional or a relative clause, you're not too sure how to do that, look it up. Okay, plenty of resources on the internet. Okay, we can't go to bookshops at the moment, unfortunately, but lots of websites to use. This one is a bit of a contentious one. There's quite a lot of different opinions around this, but you can try them. Okay, you can use grammar checking tools. Okay, perhaps after you have edited it yourself, you can run it through Grammarly if you use that, or a similar tool. Even Google Docs, the grammar check there is not too bad, and it will spot basic mistakes. Okay, Microsoft Word, not so great at checking grammar. Google Docs is a bit better. Okay, if you have friends, please share your writing, ask for feedback from your friends, and read a lot. Okay, please, you learn new grammar, you will be exposed to lots of new grammar in your reading. So really important, read a lot, and we'll see this again later on. Finally, of course, practice. Okay. Let's go back to these band descriptors. So if we look at number 6 again, it says uses a mix of simple and complex sentence forms. Well, here we have a variety of complex structures, so simple and complex. So very quickly, before we talk about those, let's just review. What is the difference between a simple and a complex sentence? We have another kind of sentence too, a compound sentence. So we've got 3 sentences here. And, okay. Okay, this sentence is a simple sentence. There's one independent clause. There's one finite verb in here, the verb have, okay? Subject, verb, object. The second one is a compound sentence. Here we have 2 independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction and. Now, if you're not familiar with these words, independent, clause, coordinating, conjunction, my suggestion is that you become familiar, okay? When you review grammar, use grammar reference books and learn what these words are. It's much easier to learn about grammar when you are familiar with the language for describing grammar. And the last one is a complex sentence. We have, okay, independent and dependent clauses joined by a subordinating conjunction. So because here is subordinating and is coordinating, you might have heard of fanboys. Fanboys is how we remember our coordinating conjunctions. Are you familiar with fanboys? Perhaps you can send me a chat. What do fanboys stand for? Let's see who can be the fastest with that. Okay. Okay, for, and then the A for and, the B for but, the S, fanboy. Okay, we missed the N. N for no, O for R. Very good. Y for yet, S for so. Okay. So we know the difference between a complex and a simple. Simple sentence, one clause. Complex, a coordinating and a subordinate clause. So what does this mean? Does this mean only use complex sentence in your writing? Do you think that's right? yeah, uses a variety of complex sentences. So that means only use complex sentences. You think that's right? Okay, I've got lots of no's. No, definitely not. Okay. Yes, definitely not. Okay. In good writing, okay, there will be a mix of all three sentence types. A mix of simple, a mix of compound, a mix of complex. Okay. And your topic sentence would be a good example of where you would probably use a simple sentence, okay, with just a subject and an object. That's what I teach anyway. Okay, so it means use a variety of those different types of sentence. And when it comes to complex sentences, we want to use different types of structures, not just one or two types. To get a 7, you have to be able to use a variety of complex structures. So the question is, what are some of those different kinds of complex structures, and how can you increase your variety? So, as I said, be familiar with a wide range of complex structures. Any idea what are some of the different complex structures? Just give you 30 seconds in the chat box. Okay, do you know what kinds of complex structures might you know? Okay, Mr. Ewing. Okay, relative clause. It is said that, so that's introducing a noun clause. Okay, passive voice. Yes, conditionals. Although is a subordinate conjunction. Very good. Present perfect is a tense. Okay, present perfect can be used in any type of clause. Okay, cause and effect. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, some good ideas. Adverbial clauses, inversion. Okay. So just some ideas for you. Okay, of course, conditionals. Okay, first, second, third, zero. Okay, present participle clauses. We'll have a look at some examples in a moment. Okay, noun clauses. So I think that so starting with that. My thing around relative clauses, and there are different types of relative clause. Reduced relative clauses are very good if you know how to use those. Okay. And what have we got here? Prepositional phrases. So starting with a preposition. I think we have an example of one of those in a moment. Okay, not only, but also just an interesting conjunction to use, not only, but also. Okay. Long noun phrases. It's not a different kind of clause, but it's what I would consider to be a complex grammatical structure. Okay. You know, the definition of complex form maybe is a little bit loose, vague. Okay. So long noun phrases are great too. What else do we have? And there are probably over 100 different subordinate conjunctions that you can use to add variety. Okay. So use a wide variety and set yourself some grammar goals. So if a particular kind of grammar is new to you, for example, a prepositional phrase, okay, you've just studied that. So give yourself a challenge. Yeah, in my next essay, I'm going to use 3 relative clauses or 3 prepositional phrases or 3 adverbial clauses. So I'm going to use not only, but also in this essay. Okay, maybe twice. So practice using the grammar. You can also practice transformation exercises. And I know that you are familiar with these because I know Vietnamese teachers love to use these in their lessons at school, okay, at high school. And let's have a quick look at some transformation exercises now, where we will transform the grammar. So here's one. Okay. So can you change this sentence to use despite? Okay. Have a go. Send me in the chat box. Perhaps send it to me if you know how to do that rather than everyone. I'll give you 30 seconds. Okay. Okay, excellent. Okay, we got some correct answers there. Very good. Okay. We got despite the fact. You could do despite the fact. Okay, she wasn't ready. That would be good too. Okay. So despite the fact would be making despite a. Okay, well here's my answer. Okay, so I've used despite here as a preposition, okay, to make a prepositional phrase, okay, despite not being ready. So she took her driving test despite not being ready. You can swap those over, that's fine. Despite not being ready, she took her driving test. Let's look at another one. So London is the biggest city in the UK and it is the capital. Make a sentence with which. Okay. Okay, I've seen two options. There are two options here. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. So my answer, London, which is the biggest city in the UK, is the capital. Okay. If the main information was that it's the biggest city in the UK, you would put that as the main clause. London, which is the capital, is the biggest city in the UK. Okay, depends what the main information is. Notice the commas. Okay, this is non-defining. This is adding extra information about the UK. So you need some commas for this sentence. Okay, last one. Being. I think this is the trickiest one. What do you think here? Okay, excellent. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is a good example of quite maybe quite advanced grammar. I would be impressed by this if I saw this in a student's essay. Okay, we've made a participle clause. Okay, being an only child. Okay, he is very spoiled by his parents. So I think that's a good one. That would impress me, that last one there. And well done if you got that one right. Okay, so these are some examples of transformation exercises. And if you Google transformation grammar exercises, you will find lots and lots and lots of these. Okay, so you can do these to work on your grammar and to practice using more advanced and more complex types. Okay, so that's grammar. Okay, now we move on to vocabulary, as we call it, lexical resource. So again, let's look at these band descriptors. Okay. So for a 6, you're allowed to make some errors. Okay. And again, we've got this: do not impede communication. Okay. Well, actually, if you remember in grammar, you are allowed to make your idea not so clear. If your idea is not so clear, it's okay for grammar, but for 6, for vocabulary, we have to understand what you are saying. So sometimes in students writing, people use the wrong word, and I don't understand what their idea is because they've chosen the wrong word. Now, to get a 6, you can't do that, okay? Your word, even if it's a little bit wrong, it has to express your idea, okay? So if you need to do that for a 6, it means you need to do that for a 7 too, okay? And then we have some errors versus occasional errors. So that just means you have to limit, okay? You have to make fewer errors in a band 7 compared to a band 6. And you have to be able to communicate your ideas successfully again. Okay. Now, in a band score 6, you also have to attempt to use less common vocabulary. Okay, attempts. Whereas in band 7, it also says some inaccuracy. So again, that's referring to mistakes. Okay, you're trying to use difficult words, but you're making mistakes. Whereas for band 7, you do use less comical items. So you're more successful at using less common words. Okay, and also an adequate range of vocabulary for the text and a sufficient range. Very similar here. Okay, so for band score 6, okay, you are able to complete the task. Your vocabulary is good enough that you can fulfill all requirements of the task, which is we will look at later on, okay, in task achievement. While in band score 7, you're able to do that, but you're also able to, and I think we might be looking at this later, you have a sufficient range to express your ideas a bit more clearly. So what this means for you is that you need to, of course, okay, increase the size of your vocabulary. I'm sure you are aware of this, okay? And you have to have some ability to choose the best word to express an idea clearly. This is where English is tricky. Okay, there are over 1 million words in English, and you are all familiar with the amount of synonyms that we have. But synonyms differ in meaning slightly. And that's probably one of the most common mistakes that I see in assignments when I give assignments to students. Okay, they look up synonyms. They wanna use less common vocabulary, so they use their dictionaries to find synonyms, but they don't know which synonym to choose. Okay, so their idea, perhaps I can understand their idea, but they haven't been precise enough. Okay, so you're gonna have some precision for a band 7, some ability to be using the correct synonym. Okay. Anyway, how can we learn new vocabulary? Do we have any ideas? Okay, let's go to the chat box. And can you share some of your ideas before I give you my ideas? What do you think are some of the best ways of learning new words? Okay. TED Talk. I like TED Talks. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep. Reading, practice books, learn in sentence. Very good. Flashcards we've had. Yep. A couple of times. Podcasts. Okay. Got apps here. Reading articles, BBC. Okay. Reading is coming up a lot. Okay. Space repetition. Okay. Watching Netflix. Okay. Have fun and learn at the same time. Why not? Okay. Okay, we got some book ideas like Cambridge vocabulary for IELTS. Okay. So you've got a lot of my same ideas. Oh, someone's got Ellen. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Ellen, but okay. Watch what you like. Yeah. So here are my ideas. And I think you've come up with most of these anyway. Okay. The most important thing you can do. Okay. If you're not doing this, you need to be doing it. Read, read, read. Okay. You don't have to be reading news websites or academic texts. Okay. You can read whatever you like. Okay, read what you find interesting. I saw someone put comic books. If you like comic books, read comic books. Okay, in all kinds of reading texts there will be vocabulary that you have never seen before. Okay, so read, read, read. Obviously, okay, it's great to read more like academic texts or news articles. Okay, but the most important thing is that you read. So read, read, read. And perhaps if you need some ideas on things to read, you can ask me in the Q&A later. Okay. When you read, this is a skill that we cover in lessons often. Okay, guess the meaning of new words. Okay, you will learn and remember the meaning much better if you make some attempt to guess what the word means. That is how we learn a language naturally, right? That's how you learn Vietnamese. That's how I learned English as a child, okay? By encountering new words in my reading and also, of course, in my listening, okay? For vocabulary, reading will be more effective than listening. Okay, so if you do listen, subtitles are great, okay, to see those new words as we hear them. And check your guesses, okay, or if you really can't guess, look up words in a dictionary. I often tell my students to highlight new words, perhaps read for fluency first, okay? Highlight words that you're not familiar with, guess while you read, and then you can go back and look up the new words later on, okay? So keep a highlighter pen nearby when you read, if you're reading something paper. Okay, flashcards, as someone said. Okay, I like Quizlet. Quizlet has some good games on there too. Okay, so you can turn your flashcards into games. Quizlet, you can also search for flashcard sets. Okay, so you don't have to do any hard work. You just Google, you just search on Quizlet, yeah, IELTS environment, and get lots of different flashcard sets to study environment words or crime and punishment. Yeah, whatever topic you want to learn, you put it into Quizlet. Okay, so Quizlet is great. You can also keep a vocab book. Okay, that's a great way too. You can also, we got learn word families. I'm a big fan of this. So instead of just learning one word, say the noun, you learn the noun and you learn the verb, you learn the adjectives too. Okay, you learn the adverbs. So don't just learn one word. Okay, learn all of the connected words, the noun, the verb, the adjective, and the adverb. Okay, topic-based vocabulary. So as I mentioned with Quizlet, okay, you search for a topic on Quizlet, environment, or crime and punishment, or technology, social networks, okay, whatever topic it is you want to learn. And then obviously, once you've learned topic-based vocabulary, set yourself an IELTS essay that uses that vocabulary, so you get a chance to practice it. Okay. A few of you mentioned learning apps. Okay. So learning apps are a great way. Okay, there are lots and lots of apps, and I looked when I was making this presentation, I had a quick look on Google Play to look at the apps. There were so many. Okay, I'm not too familiar with the apps. Perhaps you can get a recommendation from a friend or read the reviews. Try and find out what the best ones are. Okay. Perhaps if you wonder what are some good apps, something we can discuss in the chat box at the end of the webinar. And as I just mentioned, use whatever you learn in your writing. Okay. Perhaps you could make a list of words, have that list of words next to you and try to put them into your writing. Okay. You remember through practice. Okay, so back to the task descriptors. So we saw that to get a band 7, you have to use less common, okay, lexical items. But what does this mean? What are less common lexical items? Well, examiners use their experience as teachers, okay, and examiners to kind of determine, to feel how common, okay. There's no set definition of what a less common lexical item is, okay. It's just something that examiners are able to gauge using their experience. But it's useful for you, okay, to know how common a word is, okay, for you to kind of figure out if this word is less common or not, okay. And there is a way you can do that, and I'm going to show you how you can do that now. Okay. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. Okay, so one way we divide up the levels of English is this: 6 levels. Okay, A1, beginner or elementary, up to B1, B2. We call that to be an intermediate level. C1, C2, advanced level. Okay, so you might have seen these before, okay, on your English books or when you sign up for an English course. And there is the IELTS band scores can be matched to this. So we can see here that a band score 7 is equal to C1 level. Okay. So this is a definition, okay, a dictionary entry from Oxford Learners Dictionaries. This is my favorite Learners Dictionary. This is the one I use when I plan my materials for my students. And you can see on here, okay, in Oxford Learners Dictionary's opinion, it is their opinion, okay, they think this is a C1 word, okay. So you can use this to find out, you know, which words are C1, which words are lower than C1. And on Oxford Learners Dictionary, they have a lot of word lists, okay, topic-based word lists. If you go to the website and you find this topics, okay, you can click on that and this will come up. And then you can see lists like this. And these lists, you can see here that we've got lots of C1, lots of C2 as well. C2 also obviously going to be less common. Okay, so these word lists are a great way of learning topic-based vocabulary. Okay, so if you set yourself here an environment essay, task 2 practice, okay, you can use this word list, okay, and kind of try and use some of these words, try and use some of these C1 and C2 words in your writing. So I think this is a great resource for you for learning and improving your vocabulary, especially those less common words. Okay, a quick game, okay, for you. C2 or not C2? So I've got two words for you here. Which of these words do you think is C2? And which of them is less than C2? So again, in the chat box, okay, can you, what do you think? Okay. You 10 seconds. Get as many. Okay. Well, I'm seeing a mix here. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's find out. I think there's about 50-50 there, noticeable and pronounced. Okay, so the C2 word is pronounced. Noticeable is, I think it's B2. Okay, there's still, you know, both of them are not that common, but pronounced is the little bit more advanced word. Okay, that might impress an examiner a little bit more than noticeable, but obviously using both of them would be good too. Okay, I've got a couple of these. Here, suburbs and outskirts. What do you think? Which one is C2? These refer to part of a city, yeah? Okay, I think there are a few more outskirts than suburbs this time. Let's find out. It is outskirts. Well done if you said that. Okay, so outskirts is a C1 word according to the Oxford Learners Dictionary, but I definitely think outskirts is a little bit more advanced than suburbs. Suburbs is something that I usually teach in a B1 or B2 course, an intermediate course. Okay, and outskirts does not always come up. Okay, how about here? Two adjectives for you: innovative and revolutionary. Which do you think? So again, they're synonymous, they're very similar in meaning. So revolutionary is a little bit stronger than innovative. Which one? Okay. Again, it's fairly 50-50, I think. Okay. Okay, I think a fairly 50-50. Let's find out. Revolutionary. Well done if you said revolutionary. Okay. So again, innovative would be a word that would come up in kind of an intermediate course. Okay. Revolutionary, perhaps not. Okay. There are a few of these. Okay. I think I've got 8. How about here? What do you think? Okay. Ooh, lots of heightens coming up here at the end. Okay, let's find out. Heighten, well done. Well done. Okay. So sometimes you get, you know, the base word of heighten is height. Okay, and height, obviously not C1. Okay, but by turning it to a verb, it becomes C1. Okay, so sometimes quite simple base words can be the different word forms can be more advanced. Okay, simple base words, that's right. Okay, but advanced word families. Okay, yeah, to use heighten in a sentence, that would impress me, to be honest. And it would impress me because you would have to collocate it well. It'd have to go well with the word next to it. Okay, and we're going to look at collocations in a second. Okay, 1 or 2 more examples. Assemble or construct. What do you think? Okay, oh, lots of assemble. Assemble, a clear winner here. Assemble is correct. Well done. Well done. Okay, very good. I think there are 2 left. How about here? Tremendous and remarkable. 2 adjectives. Okay. A tremendous idea, a remarkable idea. Lots and lots of tremendous here. Let's have a look. Okay, very good. Tremendous. Okay, if you haven't seen this word here, just means really, really fantastic, really great. Okay. It can also be used as like a quantifier, a tremendous amount. Okay. I would be impressed if you use this as a quantifier. Yeah. If I give you a sentence, there was a tremendous amount of change between the 2 periods. Yeah, task 1, you're describing a line graph or something, tremendous amount of change. Okay, would be a good. In task 2, yeah, refer to something as a tremendous success. It is positive. Yeah. Okay. I got the last one. Last one. Dimension and aspect. Okay. This one's too easy. Okay. Yes. Okay. Very good. Very good. Let's have a look. Dimension, of course. So dimension. There were several dimensions to this problem. Yeah. It's pretty close synonym to aspect. Yeah. There were many aspects to this. There were many dimensions to this. Okay. Factors is another similar word. Okay. So very good. Okay. So there you go. So get an idea, C2 vocabulary. Okay. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Okay. To hopefully guarantee you that band score 7. There's one more thing we need to look at on this band descriptor, and that is here. Okay. So you have to use those less common words. Okay. It's important to have a good vocabulary, okay, with knowledge of less common words, but it's also important, okay, to have this, okay, an awareness of style. Style means formal versus informal, okay. I'm not going to cover this really, okay. But informal, we know things like phrasal verbs, yeah, contractions, can't, yeah, very general words like stuff and things, and adverbs like just and so, yeah. So those words are words we need to avoid, okay. We want to be using formal vocabulary. And the second thing is collocation. Okay. I mentioned collocation just a second ago. Collocation are words that are used together. So it's not enough to know an advanced word. You have to know what words are used with that word. So that's what we will look at now. Okay. Collocation. Before we look at how to improve your collocation skills, just have a quick game. Unfortunately, we can't annotate, we can't circle. So which words do you think collocate with the word awareness? There's more than one word, yeah? Raise awareness, increase awareness, grow awareness. Okay, the answer. So, okay, let's have a look. So these three, okay, increase awareness, raise awareness, promote awareness. We don't use grow or stimulate. Although all of these 5 words are synonyms, we don't use grow or stimulate. And this is the danger that I've mentioned. You put in increase, okay, in your dictionary, okay, you find these synonyms, but which are okay to use, which are not okay to use. Okay, if you use grow awareness, okay, I would understand your meaning. Okay, but okay, your collocation would be incorrect. Okay, so that might limit you, okay, to a band score 6 if you make too many of these type of errors. Let's have a look at another one. I've got 3, so this is number 2. Okay, so we got this with tremendous again, and impact. So which words do we think, which adjectives can we use with impact? Okay, I can see some correct answers here. Okay, I can see some people are getting all 3 of them correct. Let's have a look. Okay, tremendous, enormous, huge impact, but we do not say a giant impact or an extensive impact. Okay, these do not collocate. So again, they're synonyms, but those 2 words are not used with impact, although we would understand your meaning. Okay, and the last one. Okay, these are not synonyms here. Okay, but it's still good to be aware. What do we think can be used with environmental? Yeah. Okay, okay. I think I'm seeing lots of correct answers here too. Okay, let's have a look. There you go. Okay. Yeah, we don't use worry here. Okay, an environmental worry is an unusual collocation. Okay, but environmental concern, okay, is much more common, and that's okay to use. And an environmental issue and impact, okay, they are fine also. Okay, so well done if you got those correct. And okay, I just, okay, why not solution? Okay, I often get asked these kind of questions. Why can't we use these 2 words together? And the answer is, I don't know. They're just not used. Okay, that's just, you know, through, you know, tens, hundreds of years of people writing English, people just don't use those words together. And when we see those words together, it feels very strange. Okay, and that's about the only explanation, okay, we can give. They're just not used. Okay, there are no rules or anything. It's just you see 2 words together and you think, whoa, that's weird. Okay, I've never seen those words together before. Okay, or you see 2 words together and you don't think about it because it's normal to use them together. Okay, but how can you improve your collocation skills? Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 ways of how to find and check collocations. Okay, you might have some other ideas. Here are my ideas. So going back to the Oxford Learners Dictionary, you will see there is a collocation section. Oh yeah, it's come up now. Okay, here, okay, at the bottom. But it is fairly limited. Okay, there's not much. And you'll see there's a link, see full entry here at the bottom. Okay. But the problem is if you click that, it takes you to a website asking you for money. And I know we don't all have money to pay, but okay, but there is an alternative. Okay, and that is the free dictionary. It says Oxford Collocation Dictionary. I don't know if it's connected to Oxford or not. Okay, but here is a free online collocation dictionary. It doesn't look very pretty, okay, but it has all the information there. Okay, so we got an example here, impact. Now it organizes the words by similar meaning. So we can see, yeah, so which adjectives can we use with impact? Big, considerable, dramatic, enormous, great. So this first group of adjectives all describe the size of the impact, okay? And then we've got, if we go, we've got a group here, then I can't think anymore. We've got catastrophic, damaging, devastating, disastrous, heavy, negative, serious, severe. So these group of words all have a negative meaning. So I think this is a great tool, okay, for checking collocations, okay, or for choosing a word that can collocate. It is time consuming, you know, to look up these all the time, these words all the time, but this is how we improve. And the other way you can check a collocation is to use Google. Okay, if you put in two words, it's very important to use quotation marks. Okay, those ... Okay, if you put in raise awareness into Google with quotation marks, you have 48 million results. So Google is telling us these two words together are very, very common. So it means they collocate. If we put in stimulate awareness into Google with two quotation marks, you can see only 71,000. That sounds like a lot, but compared to 48 million, it's nothing. Okay. So that tells us these two words are uncommon. Okay, we do not use those words together. So stimulate awareness, not a collocation. Raise awareness, a correct collocation. So just a quick Google search is a very fast way of checking to see if a collocation is correct or not. Okay, faster than using the collocation dictionary, having to look carefully for a word. Okay, so Google's a great tool here, but again, it only works if you use quotation marks. Okay, you have to put in quotation at the beginning and at the end. Okay. Go. So let's move. Oh no, move on now. There we go. Okay, so that's vocabulary. We've looked at collocations. We've looked at finding out less common words. Okay, and some ways of learning words. Now we move on to coherence and cohesion. So let's again look at these band descriptors and see what they mean. Okay, so in band score 7, okay, presents a clear central topic within each paragraph. Okay, that means you need to use correct paragraphing. logically organizes information and ideas. There is clear progression throughout. That means, okay, you have good organization of ideas in each paragraph. And then we're jumping around a little bit. The third thing here in band 7 uses a range of cohesive devices appropriately. So that means good linking of ideas. So we are going to work through these three things: correct paragraphing, good organization of ideas, and good linking. To get a band 7, you need to do these three things. So let's start with the easiest one: correct paragraphing. Okay. So, okay, have a quick look at these task 2 questions. How many paragraphs would you write for each question? What information would each paragraph contain? Just give me the number of paragraphs. Let's do the first one first. Okay, the first task here, how many paragraphs? What we got? We got, do the advantages of this development outweigh the disadvantages? So an advantages and disadvantages paragraph. Okay, I see lots of fours. Okay, interesting. Okay, lots and lots of fours. Okay, how about the second one? We got a problem and solution essay. Okay, what problems does this situation create? What are some solutions? Okay, we got 4 again. Okay, okay, so 4 for both types. So I've done the problem solution one first. Okay, so paragraph 1, what's our paragraph 1? First paragraph. What's the content of paragraph 1 in the chat box? Can anybody tell me? Of course. Okay. The introduction. Good. Paragraph 2. What do we put in paragraph 2? Okay. So body 1 and problems. Very good. Okay. And body 2. Okay. Paragraph 3. Of course. Solutions. And then finally, we will have a short conclusion. Okay. So I hope we're all familiar with this. You need to be able to do this really to get a band score 6. Okay, so to get a 7, this is essential. Yeah, having a good structure. Okay, correct paragraphing. How about the second essay? Just have a quick look at this. So paragraph 1, again, introduction. Paragraph 2. Okay, lots of people going the advantages. Okay, advantages. This is where there's a bit more freedom. Okay, so here I've got a main advantage. Then in my other paragraph, okay, I haven't got drawbacks yet. I've got other advantages. Then I've got the disadvantages, and finally the conclusion. Okay, so I can see some people saying it depends. It does depend. Okay, and I always think in this kind of essay where you're asked, you're asking to weigh up the two sides, I like it to be a clear kind of way up. So if you have 2 paragraphs with advantages and then 1 paragraph with disadvantages, well, it's quite clear then. Okay, you're giving a lot more advantages than disadvantages, So you're saying the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. If you think the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, then yes, start with the disadvantages and put in 2 paragraphs of disadvantages. Okay. Now, okay, I can see, you know, some people, this structure has 5 paragraphs. Well, you know, you can do 5, 4 might be okay. In the problem solution kind of essay, there's a, you know, you can do problem and solution in 1 paragraph, then you can do another problem and solution in another paragraph. Okay, there are some choices here. The main, most important thing, okay, is not, you know, what structure do I use, but it's that each paragraph has one central idea. Okay, this paragraph is about this advantage, this paragraph is about this solution, or this paragraph or about these problems, okay, related to this issue. Okay, you got to have one central idea introduced in the, what do you think, what do we call the where we introduce our idea? Okay, okay, it is the topic sentence. Okay, a topic sentence needs to give the reader the main idea of this paragraph. Yes. Let me think. So problem solution. One solution to the problem of climate change is switching to renewable energy. So this paragraph is about switching to renewable energy. That's all we talk about in this paragraph. Okay. Your topic sentence can be a little bit more general. Yes, there are several problems associated with fast food. Okay, there are several problems associated with fast food. In this paragraph, we will give a few problems, okay, rather than focused on one. But it's important our topic sentence matches the content of the paragraph, okay? Essential for a band score 7. So if you're not too sure, if this is all kind of new to you, okay, there's something for you to do, okay? Review topic sentences. Okay, the next thing we need to do, okay, for this, logically organizes information ideas. There is clear progression. So this means good organization of ideas in each paragraph. So let's have a look at that now. Do a couple of examples. Okay, so we have an advantage paragraph here. Okay, so have a look and have a think. If you want to put into the chat box, you could number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and put them in order, or you can just have a quick think to yourself. I'll give you 30 seconds. What order would you put these in? Okay, so number 1, lots of people are saying topic sentence. Okay, of course, as I just showed you. Yeah, topic sentence. Then number 2, I can see lots of 1s, the main advantage. Let's have a look. Okay, very good. And this is where I can see a little bit of difference now. I see some 5s, I see some 2s, I even see some 4s too. So the next one would be, I've got the effects of the advantage. Okay, so how does this advantage affect the topic of the essay? Okay, and then if this is not just one advantage paragraph, we're going to put several advantages in one paragraph. Then you can have, oh, okay, you can also have a specific example, okay, to support. And then finally, you can have other advantages. Okay. Oh, sorry, let me just go back there so you have a chance to see that. Okay, this is just an idea, but with this structure, there's clear progression. Okay, we have a topic sentence. There are many advantages to public transport. The main advantage is that public transport reduces the amount of greenhouse gases, and then the effects. Yeah, this results in a better environment. Okay, an example is something. Okay, other advantages of public transport include it is affordable for people, and it decreases the amount of traffic on the street. Okay, so there's progression. So the next one here, how would you organize these? Only 4 here. So this is discuss a viewpoint. Yeah, discuss both views and give your own opinion type of essay. Okay. So I see 4-3. Okay. So for the first 2. So very good. Okay, of course, our topic sentence. And the topic sentence in this kind of paragraph would be a paraphrase of the viewpoint. Yeah, in my view. And then you just paraphrase whatever the viewpoint is. And then you give your main reason for this viewpoint. And then you can either provide an effect of this reason, or you can provide more reasons, and then a good idea to give an example. Okay, so this is one possible, okay, structure for this kind of paragraph. So how can you do that? This is probably one of the trickiest things for students to do. Okay, students often get ideas, but they find it difficult to organize them. So how can you improve your organization of ideas? Okay, so of course, if you've studied IELTS before, if you've looked in an IELTS textbook, they often contain these kind of structures, the structures we've just seen. Okay, they will tell you your first sentence needs to be a topic sentence. Your second sentence needs to be a reason. Your third sentence should be an example. Okay, so you can use these to get ideas. The problem is these structures kind of not very specific, right? Yeah, a reason, an effect. Okay, so you can also analyze sample answers. Okay, use the internet, find some good band score 7, 8, 9 answers and analyze them. Identify the purpose of each sentence. Yeah, what is this sentence doing? Okay, so this is a reason, this is an effect. Okay, here we have another effect linking word. So this is an effect of that effect. Okay, here's an example. So analyze the structure. Okay, you can work backwards. Okay, get a paragraph and write an outline for that paragraph. Okay, so you can get an idea of how paragraphs are structured. Okay. some examples. Okay, so purposes can include a main idea, a reason, a result, an effect, or examples. Okay. Also, okay, if you struggle with your organization, make sure you write an outline before you write your essay. Okay, and practice. Okay, you can just practice the outlines. Again, you could take a sample answer and create an outline from that sample answer. And of course, before you try a task 2, make an outline. But okay, if you do an outline in the exam, be careful that you don't spend too much time on it. Okay, there is a danger of students spending lots and lots of time thinking of ideas, putting in an outline, and then they only have 20 minutes to write their answer. And that isn't usually enough. Okay, so be careful. Definitely write outlines when you're practicing. In the exam, you might be good enough. Okay, you might be able to organize your ideas in your head. You might not need an outline in the actual exam if you practice enough. Okay, at home. Okay, so our final thing in coherence and cohesion is linking of ideas. And as it says, use a range of cohesive devices appropriately. So let's look at a range of cohesive devices. And I think we're going to look at 3 types: linking words, transitional phrases, and reference. Okay. If you're not familiar with what these are, you will find out. Okay. Oh, we can't annotate, but we can use the chat box instead. So let's start with addition. I'll give you 20 seconds. What linking words for addition do you know? Can you use? Okay, I can see some good ones. Moreover, additionally, in addition. Okay. Furthermore. Good. How about effects and results? What linking words do we know for effects and results? Okay, as a consequence, consequently, as a result. Good. Therefore. Yep. Okay. Very good. Hence. Thus. Okay, I use thus a lot in my writing. Okay, good. So, of course, so that, excellent. Okay, how about contrast? What can we use for contrast? Okay, on the contrary. Okay, I wouldn't say by contrast, not what I use too much. In contrast. On the other hand, is a classic. Yeah, in contrast. On the contrary. Conversely, that's a nice one. Okay. And don't forget things like while, conjunctions too. Okay, linking words are not always adverbs. Okay, conjunctions also. Yeah, while, whereas. And examples. What can we use for giving examples? For instance, particularly, that's good. Yes, namely, to illustrate, for instance, a case in point is. Okay. Another example is, okay. Okay. And don't forget such as, okay? Such as is an important one too. Okay, so yeah, if you Google IELTS essay words, okay, IELTS essay linking words, you get lots of tables like this, okay? So use these, okay? You can, again, you can have these out. You can have a table up like this while you're writing and just pick words from it, okay? Just don't use the same linking words too many times. I put twice, okay? There's not too many linking words for addition, yeah, if we're thinking about adverbs, okay? But you know, an IELTS essay is not that long, so I think you should be able to do that, okay? You should be able to not have the same word twice, okay? And that will get you that range of linking words. Okay, so now we'll move on to transitional phrases. Okay, so besides using linking words, use transitional phrases to link ideas. And I think these are much more impressive to use. So I'll just give you some examples. Okay, another solution to the impacts of climate change is, okay, so instead of just saying moreover, yes, to combat climate change, people can also, you can create this noun phrase, another solution. Okay. So despite being an effective way of reducing crime, imprisonment, so you're linking with a previous idea. Okay, you've got some solution. The solution is imprisonment, and you've said how it is an effective way of reducing crime. And now we're going to move on to it seems like a disadvantage now. Okay, and then in addition to being an effective way of testing students' progress, exams. Okay, so we've said in the previous idea that exams are an effective way of testing student progress. And now we're going to give another advantage of exams. Okay, so using these phrases, these adverbial phrases, or these noun phrases to link are quite impressive. Okay, definitely band score 7 if you are able to use these. Some of these phrases can be used to link paragraphs together. Some can be used to link ideas within paragraphs. So quickly, which of these phrases do you think are more suitable for paragraphs? In the chat box, yeah. Okay. Which do you think are more probably linking paragraphs? Okay. Okay. Number one, I would say could be either, could be within a paragraph, or it could be a new paragraph. Okay, if you're doing, if you want to do two main solutions, okay, so you could start a paragraph with this, or you could put it in the middle of a paragraph. I think both would be fine. The second one has to be the beginning of a paragraph, because we're now moving from an advantage to a disadvantage. So those have to be two paragraphs. So despite being an effective way of reducing crime, imprisonment, and then that would be your topic sentence, okay, for the second one. And number 3 can be both, I think, too. Okay, you could either start a paragraph with this, or you could use it in the middle of a paragraph. Both would be okay. Okay, so transitional phrases, okay, an impressive way of linking ideas. Okay, now referencing, the last thing. Okay, I use the word reference, referencing. Okay, reference are the individual words, and referencing is the action. Okay, to reference your ideas, your previous ideas. So I will show you a paragraph, and the paragraph is part of this essay. Okay, deforestation is a growing problem in many developing countries and has led to the destruction of many animals' habitats. Provide some of the causes of this problem and give some solutions. And identify words in the paragraph that refer to deforestation. Okay. So here is the paragraph. Okay, there are many words, so if you want to put them in the chat box, you can. If you want to just have a look, that's fine too. Maybe you can count, yeah? How many can you count? Put in the number in the chat box. How many words and phrases? Let's go through and take a look. So our first word, okay, so here's deforestation, okay? And the first word I've got is this process. And then I have this destruction. And then I have the clearance of land. And then I have vast areas of forest have been destroyed. Then we have trees are cut down. Then we have the destruction of forests. And then we have again, trees are cut down. Okay, and we have finally this. Okay, so our main idea, our topic, deforestation, okay, is repeated throughout the paragraph. This is very important to repeat your idea throughout a paragraph. And we can put these words into three categories, okay? So we've got words which are phrases with the same meaning. Okay, I'm just going to go through these. So we got the clearance of land, vast areas of forest are being destroyed, trees are cut down, destruction of forests. Okay, so these are all phrases that refer to deforestation. Then we have some general nouns. There are only two. What are the two general nouns here? Okay, so they are process and destruction. Okay, so these are general nouns. They can refer to many different things, but here they refer to deforestation. We also have pronouns. I think there's only one, okay, that refers to, that we had, which is at the end, this, okay? This here is referring to a process, okay, an action. It refers to things, items. This refers to processes. So the key point here is that repeating the topic and main ideas creates cohesion, and that is what we mean by cohesion, okay? This paragraph has a central topic that we've introduced in the topic sentence, and we are repeating that topic throughout. I think that is a classic mistake that students make, okay? They feel that it's not okay to repeat the topic, okay, or something, but you have to be referring back to that topic and also referring back to your controlling idea. Okay, so if we just quickly go back to here, we've got humans are responsible. Okay, so humans, we've also got referencing to human, we've got agricultural purposes. Okay, that's kind of referencing humans. Okay, we've got creation of palm trees, that's something that people do. Okay, beef farming, so that's human related. The logging industry, okay, wood which are used in paper and furniture. So all of these are referring to human actions. Demand is referring to people also. So gotta repeat the topic and main ideas and refer to them. And to do that, okay, use your pronouns, it, they, them, this. Use these general nouns with a determiner before, okay? So this reason, this habitat, this trend, this process, these people. Synonyms we can use, okay? So you've had an essay about the internet, the web. You can use online as an adverb, doing things online. Cyberspace, another synonym. Or we can create phrases, okay? People who work in hospitals to refer to doctors and nurses, okay? So there are lots of, lots of variety here that we can use to refer to our main ideas. I'll do this very quickly. So we've got a task here, okay? It's about students, okay? In the past, students did a university degree, they tended to study in their own country. Nowadays, they have more opportunities to study abroad. So how would you refer to students in this task? What are the different ways? Okay, we're going to be talking about students a lot. So in the chat box, and I do have a hint, I think. Okay, so think about what kind of students. What kind of students? Okay, the university students. Okay, read the task carefully. Okay, gotta read the task carefully. They tended to study in their own country. Nowadays, they have more opportunities to study abroad. So what kind of students are we talking about? Okay, exchange students. That looks good to me. Okay, foreign students. There we go. Okay. We are talking about students who study abroad. So there's a phrase, students who study abroad, international students. Okay, foreign students, exchange students, overseas students, students studying in another country. Yeah, students who have chosen to study overseas. You can build all of these phrases to refer to them. You can add these defining relative clauses to the word student, okay, to create phrases. Okay, so, okay, important to get the right type of student here, because again, students who are studying abroad, that's what this essay is about. It's not talking about students in general, okay? These students, okay? Students who study abroad. Okay, of course you can just use they as well, okay? But lots of options here. So important to have a lot of variety in how we refer to these students. Okay. So there will always be something to refer to: the problem, the solution, the issue, the people. Okay, here the students. Okay. Now we move on to task response. Okay, remember we had task achievement and task response, but we're going to focus on task 2 today, okay, because of our time limits. So we'll look at task response. So our band score 7. Okay, oh, 6, sorry, start with 6. So 6 tells us that we need to address all parts of the task. Okay, some parts may be more fully covered than others. So one paragraph might be more detailed than another paragraph. But for band score 7, we have to it just says address all parts of the task. Okay, it doesn't say some parts may be more fully covered. So do I have my meaning? So it means that we need to write a full answer with good development. Okay. And just quickly addressing all parts of the task. I have, what 5 things does this task ask you to do? There were 5 things here. Can you find them? And again, I'll give you a hint. Okay, there are 5 instruction verbs here. Have you found them all? So we have discuss, give your own opinion, give again, this time give reasons for your answer, include relevant examples, and write 250 words. So we got 5 things you need to do. I just want to go back. I'm not sure if I go back or not. So when we're talking about write a full answer, address all parts of the task, it means to do all 5 of these things. Okay, which is fairly straightforward. Okay, you should be able to do that. Okay, perhaps the most difficult one is getting the word count, managing your time. And just a reminder, how many words do you have to write in an IELTS task 2? Okay. Okay. Yes. So the key part here is at least 250 words. Okay, it is not 250, it is at least 250. And in my opinion, okay, to get a 7, you got to be aiming for 300. Okay, that's my opinion. Of all the IELTS essays I've marked, okay, in my long teaching career, okay, it is very hard to have a well-developed answer in 250 words. Those extra 50 can make a big difference to developing. What about time? Someone's asking. Practice. Okay, you've got to practice, practice, practice. Okay, you get faster at writing essays. Yeah, you know, obviously I'm a native speaker. Okay, but I can do a 300-word essay probably in about 20 minutes. Okay, it's not too hard for me to come up with ideas, because the ideas, you know, IELTS essays tend to be about the same topics. Okay, the same topics come up again and again. So, you know, hopefully you have the ideas already. Okay, you've practiced a lot. Okay, you practice writing outlines at home, so you're able to come up with a structure quickly, and then hopefully it's just a question of getting words on paper. So that's what we're aiming for. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, and try to get to 300 words for a 7. Okay, again, okay, if you're aiming for a 7. Okay, and task response again. What else do we look at here? Okay, prevents a relevant position, although the conclusions may become unclear or repetitive. So if your conclusion sounds too similar to your introduction, yeah, maybe your paraphrase in your conclusion is not great, that might be considered to be repetitive. To get a 7, a clear position throughout the response. Okay. So this means to get a 7, okay, make sure each paragraph has a main idea, as we have discussed before, okay? A topic sentence with a main idea, and make sure your paragraph only contains that main idea. But also outside of the body paragraph, okay, we need to ensure we have our position in the introduction. Okay, I think that's something a lot of people miss. Okay, they miss putting their position in the introduction. Some of you might be familiar with a thesis statement. So that's what we need. Okay, a thesis statement with our position. And then summarize your ideas, okay? Summarize those body paragraphs and restate your position in using a paraphrase in the conclusion. So you have your position in each paragraph. Here are 3 introductions. I'm gonna give you a minute, okay? I don't know if it's enough time for you or not, but we've got a couple more things to get through in our time. So I'll give you a minute for this. Which of these introductions is the best? Okay, so let's look at this first one. The problem with the first one, if anybody has noticed this, the first one we have, let's look at the end. I believe that students achieve the most when boys and girls study together. So we have a thesis statement. We have the writer's position, but repetitive. Okay, it is not a good paraphrase of the question. Okay, there's quite a few words, and the overall structure, okay, has been copied from the question. So number 1 is no good. Okay, now let's move to number 3. Okay, in number 3 we have a very good paraphrase of the question. Okay, we've really changed the question quite a bit. but, okay, we've got in this essay, I will examine both viewpoints and give my own opinion. This is a statement of purpose, okay, but it is not a thesis statement, okay? I do not give my opinion here, okay? In the second one, we have a paraphrase, okay? It's not quite as good as is the third introduction, okay? But it's a paraphrase, okay? I've changed a bit, and we have a thesis statement. I believe that students learn the most when they study with people from both sexes. So the best introduction is number 2, okay? We've got a paraphrase and we've got a thesis statement. We've got a position. Okay, so number 2 is the better one here. Okay, it's the shortest, okay? Introduction doesn't need to be too long, okay? Your body paragraphs are where you're going to earn most of your marks. So your thesis statement is just stating your opinion, okay? What is your viewpoint? Yeah, I believe students learn the most when they study, or in a different type of essay, I believe the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. Yes, I believe that something solution is an important way of solving this problem. Okay, so it's starting with something like I believe, in my viewpoint, in my opinion. Okay, try and use that in your introduction. Okay, and now we move on to our final part of task achievement. Okay, for 6, you need to present main ideas. Okay, but some ideas can be inadequately developed, unclear. So to get a 6, you don't have to develop your ideas too fully, but to get a 7, you have to extend and support your main ideas. Okay, so this means, okay, provide ideas with and support them with reasons, effects, and examples. We've kind of looked at this in the structure. Okay, but very quickly, and I think this is the final bit before we move on. So what's wrong with this paragraph? Okay, we're starting to get some answers in the chat box. Okay. Yes, okay, there's no development here. Okay, ideas are simply listed. Okay, so we have 3 benefits in this paragraph, and the benefits are not listed at all, not developed at all. It's just a list. Okay. Someone asked before, what is mechanical? This is quite mechanical. Okay, first, second, finally. Okay, and there's no development here. So let's compare it to this paragraph. Okay, or a half of a paragraph. Okay, where we have development. Okay, we've got many argue that this is because. So in my topic sentence is much clearer. Okay, I've decided to focus on one main benefit, and then I'm going to explain why I believe this benefit exists. Okay. So in my opinion, the main reason is, and then this means, okay, and then this also means. So we've got development here. So just to sum up there, okay, supporting ideas. Do not list ideas. Okay, provide an idea, a main idea, and then you develop it with reasons. Effects. I'm a big fan of cause and effect chains. So this causes this, which causes this, which causes this. Okay. And examples. And again, you can analyze IELTS essays and look at how they are developed. Again, analyze sentence by sentence and see what each sentence is doing. Okay. So that's the end of the 4 band scores. And just very quickly, okay, I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can improve your score over lockdown. What can you do? We've already mentioned quite a lot of things, okay, like analyzing essays, practicing reading, okay. So I guess we're just going to sum up those. So, okay, practice, practice, practice. Create a timetable. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we covered today. You've got those 4 different band descriptors. Okay, so writing is a very big skill. So you can break it up into parts, make a timetable. Today I'm going to practice my cohesion. Okay, practice referencing. Okay, another day I will practice vocabulary. Okay, and try to study some topic-based vocabulary and use that vocabulary in an IELTS essay, and so on. And create goals for your writing. Okay, like I mentioned with the grammar. Okay, I have a goal of using this type of grammar in an essay, or have a goal of using this vocabulary, this kind of referencing, and so on. It's always good to have a goal. Okay, and I kind of mentioned this too. Okay, so timed writing, and then analyze your writing and rewrite it. Don't forget, you can read it out loud. Okay, analyze it sentence by sentence, use checklists. Okay, and then rewrite it, type it up on a computer. Okay, and edit it. Okay, and I think it's always good to revisit things that you've written in the past. Okay, trust me, even I, okay, when I look at my old essays from when I was a student, I notice mistakes that I hadn't noticed when I wrote the essay. So when you revisit things, okay, put them away for a couple of weeks, and when you go back to them, suddenly things will jump out at you that you did not notice before. Okay, and you will be able to improve your old writing a lot. So that's practice, but also, okay, obviously there's no IELTS testing at the moment. Okay, hopefully very soon we'll be able to run IELTS tests again. So it's important that you study, and you can find out what your IELTS strengths and weaknesses are, and kind of find out what things you need to target. One way of doing it is to take an online practice test. Okay, and there were quite a few options available for taking tests. Okay, and there's one particular kind of test which is run by IDP and the other IELTS partners. Okay, and you actually get feedback from IELTS examiners, and they will give you a indicative band score. Okay, so this will show you what you need to work on, okay, to get your target band score, whether it be a 7 or a 6.5 or whatever. Okay, so I think this is can be really useful for you, okay, to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. So again, there's the website IELTSprogresscheck.com. Okay, it's official. It's run by IDP and the partners, and you can get feedback from real examiners. There we go. And of course, the final thing you can do is study. Okay, you practice and you study new things. Study things that you don't know, that you haven't learned before. Okay, and there are thousands of internet resources to choose from. I'm sure you're all aware of all the different IELTS websites. They do vary in quality a lot. Okay, there are some good ones, there are some not so good ones. Okay, IDP has a website, okay, with some very, very useful materials on there. There are some free reading and writing tests, I think, that you can take on here, or at least there are some links to some tests, and lots of useful hints and tips on here. Okay, so the IELTS, the IDP website is a good one to choose. And you can also take an online class, of course. We can't have classes in schools at the moment, like classroom-based lessons, but there are plenty of online classes that you can take, okay? And an example is ACET, okay? It's where I work. So this is the little bit of the advertisement section now, okay? But ACET do offer, okay, some very good courses. We have a very good team of teachers that I work with at ACET, okay? And we have some 60-hour courses that focus on writing and speaking, okay? These are IELTS courses, IELTS skill set, okay? And they will really help you out, okay? Like I said, we have lots of very experienced IELTS teachers at ACET, okay? And the best thing about, you know, joining a class is that you get feedback, okay, and guidance, okay, on your writing and speaking, okay? It's easy to learn these tips and skills online, okay, but it is important to get feedback on your writing and speaking. And I have been asked to inform you that actually right now there are some promotions at ACET, okay? So for the AE, which is academic English, okay, there's a 30% discount on, these are 100-hour courses, okay? And on the skill set IELTS courses, there are 30% discounts, okay, on these 60-hour courses, okay? So they become more affordable, and they're very, very good value, and you get to study with some great teachers like me, okay? Oh, one more thing here, okay? If you join a skill set course, okay, you will get an IELTS speaking practice voucher, okay? So you get to practice, do a practice speaking test with one of our experienced teachers at ACET. And now I believe I'm going to hand you over just for a little bit to one of the IDP staff members who's going to tell you about the IDP promotions. I will stay here and I'll give you 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go through some question and answers before we go. So IDP staff, would you like to take over?
Okay, thank you, Mark. Xin cảm ơn tất cả các bạn rất là nhiều xin cảm ơn chia sẻ của thầy Mark Horne, và cảm ơn tất cả các bạn rất là nhiều vì đã dành thời gian tham dự buổi hội thảo ngày hôm nay. Nếu các bạn muốn xem lại hội thảo thì các bạn có thể follow Facebook IDP Education, và bây giờ thì IDP xin phép thông báo một số khuyến mãi đang có khi đăng ký IELTS trong thời gian tới. Ưu đãi đầu tiên là khi đăng ký IELTS tại IDP từ ngày 15 tháng 8 đến ngày 20 tháng 12 năm 2021, các bạn sẽ có cơ hội may mắn nhận được nhiều phần quà có giá trị, bao gồm suất học bổng IELTS trị giá 5 triệu đồng, phiếu quà tặng trị giá 300.000 đồng, thoải mái mua sắm tại các thương hiệu lớn, và các quà tặng khác như là áo mưa IDP thiết kế, hoặc là bộ muỗng đĩa nhựa than tre thân thiện với môi trường, bộ tài liệu ôn tập cùng cẩm nang hướng dẫn làm bài thi IELTS Focus, chỉ có tại IELTS IDP. Ưu đãi thứ hai dành cho các bạn nếu muốn đặt chỗ thi sớm, các bạn có thể đặt cọc trước với số tiền là 1.400.000 đồng cho các kỳ thi trong tháng 10, 11, 12 năm 2021. Các bạn sẽ nhận được bộ luyện thi độc quyền trị giá 1.500.000 đồng khi thanh toán tiền cọc trước ngày 31 tháng 8. Để đảm bảo an toàn cho các bạn thí sinh sau mùa dịch, IDP khuyến khích các bạn đăng ký thi IELTS trên máy tính. IDP đảm bảo tổ chức ít thí sinh trong một phòng thi, và kết quả thì sẽ có nhanh hơn trong vòng từ 3 đến 5 ngày so với kỳ thi giấy là 13 ngày các bạn mới có kết quả. Và 4 kỹ năng thì sẽ tổ chức cùng một ngày để tiết kiệm thời gian di chuyển cho các bạn thí sinh. Đảm bảo cơ sở vật chất phòng thi sẽ đạt chuẩn quốc tế. Mọi chi tiết về ưu đãi thì xin mời các bạn truy cập website idp.com/Việt-Nam/IELTS để biết thêm chi tiết. Ngoài ra, IDP vẫn sẽ hỗ trợ các buổi thi thử, các buổi trải nghiệm thi máy tính và IELTS Masterclass hoàn toàn miễn phí khi IDP được phép hoạt động trở lại sau dịch bệnh. Xin vui lòng liên hệ với IDP để được tư vấn thêm về các hỗ trợ học thuật này. Okay, so right now it's time for Q&A section.
Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so I think we can move on. So thank you very much all for coming. Okay, I really enjoyed talking to you today. I hope you found it useful. So now we can maybe 15 minutes, okay, to go through any questions and answers that you have. Okay, so you can type them into the chat box, or you can type them into the Q&A box you also have. Okay, while you're typing, I'll just start on some of the ones that I've seen. So a couple of people asked about conclusions with an S. Okay, I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's just, you know, sometimes you might have more than one idea in the conclusion. Yes, so to conclude, people need to, if you know, like problem and solution. Yeah, so to conclude, you summarize your solutions, but you probably have more than one solution, right? So to conclude, people need to do this and this, two things. So I guess two conclusions. Okay, so please don't worry too much about that. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm not the person to ask about signing up to paper-based or computer-based. Okay, you can contact IDP to ask about that. Any other questions? Resources for reading. Okay, what are some resources for reading? So it's always a good idea to find material that you find a little bit difficult, but not too challenging. The problem is if it's too challenging, if there's too much you don't understand, it's easy to become unmotivated, and then perhaps you can't follow the general idea of the reading. The best resources are probably news websites. Yeah, these are good places to go, but you can also find more graded practice. I can't remember what it's called. Breaking News English. They have news articles that are graded, so there are different levels. Just type it in the chat box. Breaking news English. Okay, I think Okay. Also, have a look for things that are aimed at kind of teenagers. So like science websites and news websites that are kind of aimed at teenagers, because the English there is probably going to be around a band score 7 or 8. Okay, so it's going to be a lot more understandable. I really like a magazine called The Week Junior. Okay, so that's aimed at teenagers, and the language in there is probably around a band score 7 or 8. So it's quite a useful reading source. Okay, it's not overwhelming. There's not, oh my God, there's so many new words, I don't understand this. I think it's a good source to learn from. And of course, do your IELTS reading practice too. Some of the IELTS reading tasks I find quite interesting. Okay, any other questions, guys? Okay. There is a clock in the exam room, yes? Okay, when you do the IELTS test. Do we need to plan ideas before writing? That's a really good question, and everyone's different. Okay, some IELTS websites and tips tell you always plan your ideas, write an outline. I think it really depends on you. It depends on if you need to write a plan or not. I think some people can become very good at just organizing ideas in their head, and they don't need to write out an outline beforehand. Okay, but some people will struggle with that. Some people find arranging ideas in a logical way quite challenging. So for them, perhaps it is better to write an outline. Okay, so sorry I can't give you a definite answer on that one, but it's something that you need to kind of figure out. Okay, definitely start by writing outlines, and definitely write outlines in your practice. Okay, and then if you feel you need to write an outline before the exam, just write an outline. About 5 minutes, okay? I would limit myself to for the outline. Do we need to use idioms? Idioms tend to be informal, okay? So not really to be used in the writing exam, okay? More for speaking. Although do not overuse idioms in the speaking exam either, okay? That is a very common issue with students, okay? Overusing idioms. Do you have to include at least an example? Yes. Okay, you should. It does say, yeah, give examples from your own knowledge and experience. So you should try and give an example. Okay. Don't forget you can make stuff up. Okay. IELTS examiners are not checking the accuracy of your information. Okay. So feel free to make stuff up. Okay. I use Vietnam, okay? For example, here in Vietnam, okay? And then whatever it is, okay? So yes, try to use. Are all phrasal verbs restricted in writing task 2? Yeah, best to avoid phrasal verbs, okay? Unless you can't think of something else, okay? It's most important to get your idea across. Okay, it's important to be able to communicate your ideas successfully. So if all you can think of is a phrasal verb, then okay, use the phrasal verb. But if you expand your vocabulary, hopefully you might be able to think of an alternative way. So yeah. For the discussion and give opinion, where should we give the opinion in the body? Okay, so yeah, so the opinion is going to be in the introduction and the conclusion. Okay, so in the introduction, you're going to say, in my opinion, I agree with side A. Okay, and then your body paragraphs, I would probably start with side well, not probably, I would start with side B, then one paragraph to say, you know, some people believe, short paragraph, and then however, yeah, others believe, okay, blah blah blah. And then actually, yeah, if it's a discuss both views and give your own opinion, and then you have a third body paragraph with your opinion, okay? Or if you're running out of time, you can just put it in the conclusion. Okay. Map and process, band 7. Okay, look at some example answers. Okay, we don't have time to go over how to write, how to do map or process, but look at sample answers. Okay, I always feel map and process are two of the easier ones. Okay, for task 1. So if you get those, I think you're quite lucky if you study them. Okay. Extending and arranging ideas and reasons. So again, reading, okay, looking at how people structure their ideas, okay, analyzing, identifying, you know, reasons, cause and effect, examples. So hopefully when you read lots of sample essays, you will notice how people structure their essays, okay? And if you know, use some books too, books will give you example structures, and obviously feedback would be quite useful for you there too. Paraphrasing, how can you improve paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is a big skill, okay, and you've got to think about the individual aspects of paraphrasing. So when I teach paraphrasing, we look at synonyms, okay, so having good synonym knowledge. We look at the grammar, okay, the different ways of how you can reorganize the grammar. So think, how can I flip the sentence? Okay, how can I make the object into the subject? Okay, so you can try that. You think about there's something called nominalization, where you find, you know, the verb. What is the verb of the sentence? Change that to a noun, and then go from there. Okay, so there's a lot of different individual paraphrasing skills that kind of work on them individually. Okay, break it down. Don't think paraphrasing is one big general skill. Break it down into individual skills that you can work on. Okay, also, of course, active and passive too, another one. Okay, will we have another webinar for task 1? I'm not sure. Okay. Not sure about that. Okay. Any more questions? Don't see feedbacks of unclear explanation, word choice. How do you change that? Unclear explanation. Unclear explanation sounds like, yeah, vocabulary issue, word choice issue. Okay, so it's going back to the vocabulary section of my presentation, expanding your vocabulary. Reading, okay, reading is how we learn vocabulary, and how you slowly, it's a very slow process, but you kind of recognize start to learn the collocations through reading, okay, and kind of learn what vocabulary is used in different situations to express different ideas. Okay. How will your mark be affected if you don't finish the essay? So if you haven't finished the essay, your task achievement score will be affected. The other 3 scores, okay, are not affected. I'm not gonna say that's a definite answer. Okay, I'm pretty sure the other 3 scores won't be affected, but the task achievement, there will be a penalty for that, for failure to complete the task. Complex structures to improve grammar scores. So again, that's in the earlier slide. Using complex noun phrases, they're always good. Okay, so simple grammar, okay, just one clause, but big long noun phrase. and then a verb, and then a big long noun phrase. Relative clauses are good too. Having a sentence with, 2 or 3 relative clauses inside, reducing the relative clauses. Okay, that's really typical academic English. So for grammar, for improving grammar, when you're looking for grammar materials, do go for academic English grammar materials. There are lots of academic English websites. At ACET, we teach academic English, okay? So all the grammar that we teach at ACET is all really useful for the IELTS exam, okay? Are the 4, yeah, they're equally important, okay? I'm pretty sure they are an average, okay? Or they are close to an average, okay? Okay, guys, okay. I think it's, that's all, okay? That's all I have time for. And we've had lots of questions, so I'm very sorry now, okay, to call it a day. Again, I would like to thank you all for coming here, okay? I'd like to thank you for being active participants also, okay, for joining in. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Hội thảo hôm nay đến đây là kết thúc. Một lần nữa cảm ơn các bạn rất là nhiều đã dành thời gian tham dự. Chúc các bạn một ngày Chủ nhật vui vẻ và đạt được số điểm IELTS mong muốn trong tương lai.